at Penji is our commitment to helping those who are making sacrifices to help others. Thank you to those making a difference in your community. We are currently accepting applications for Penji for nonprofits. If you know a nonprofit or you are one yourself, head over to penji.co and click on Penji for Good at the bottom of the website to learn how to qualify. If you are listening to this podcast and are not a nonprofit, well, welcome. Become a customer by using the custom coupon code within the podcast show notes. Proceeds of all sales goes directly back to the nonprofit from this interview. Now, back to the show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Unified Purpose. This is a podcast where we discuss inspiring tales of compassion, resilience, and community spirit. You know me, I'm your host, Daniela, and I'm Penji's partnership coordinator. And joined with me is Sylvia Lam, great guest from the podcast. She is from the United Angels Foundation. Hi, Sylvia. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy and excited, and I'm looking forward to our episode. So to get the ball rolling, get us started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Sylvia, what you do? Can you tell us about the United Angels Foundation? Favorite color, if you need to, everything that we have to know.
Well, my name is Sylvia Lam, and I have been working in the nonprofit world pretty much since the very beginning of my working days. I started out teaching swim lessons and lifeguarding at the YMCA, and then went from that community center to another community center to another, and eventually, almost like 20 years later, found my way to United Angels Foundation. And our mission is to support parents and families of individuals with special needs. I have a nephew who is about 30 years old, and he has really high support need autism and cerebral palsy. And I pretty much grew up with him. He was like a little brother to me. And so living in the world of special needs was not unfamiliar. It was something that was always part of my life. And when I found out about United Angels Foundation and what they did for families, I instantly thought of my sister and her husband when they were very young parents, first-time parents, and had a baby with, at that time, a pretty unknown and not as commonly known diagnosis of autism. People knew the movie Rain Man, and they would be like, "Oh, he must be, you can tell him, like, give him a date and he'll tell you what day of the week it is." And it's like, oh, no, it's not like that. And I remember when I was little, when he would come over to visit, I would have friends that came over or neighbors that would come over to play. And they would always be kind of curious and ask questions why he was different. And I just kind of felt like it was my role as his aunt to protect him, but also advocate for him and also educate and help other people understand so we can kind of break down that barrier of what's going on and, why is this different for me? My favorite color is actually purple, and that's actually the color for United Angels Foundation. So it was not intentional, but it was definitely a perk when I joined United Angels that everything is purple. And I love it because I get to wear a lot of purple, and we have purple bags, and it's just really fun because that is my favorite color.
That's amazing. It's good that Penji's color is purple and that the Unified Purpose background right now is purple.
I saw that. I love it.
So yeah, I actually am really excited because your foundation kind of hits a place close to home. I grew up, I think I've spoken about this in other podcasts, but never in detail. I grew up with ADHD. I mean, obviously I still have it. Never goes away. But they took me to like therapy and stuff when I was a kid because it was really hard for me to integrate myself to the other children and like the school system. And I remember going to like a special needs school and I was surrounded by, all types of kids, like autistic kids, kids with Down syndrome. I don't remember I was super young. I don't remember exactly like what a lot of the diagnoses were, but there was a lot of special kids. And if you put me next to them, it was probably, I guess, what you would consider like the least affected one, even though I was also very affected. And I think it really gave me perspective on how, difficult it is to sort of have children with special needs. But also, I remember playing with them as a child and getting along with them and, like not being afraid of people with special needs, which I think is like a huge thing that I see a lot of people having to face. And I think it makes foundations like yours so important because I think a lot of like stigma, a lot of help, and a lot of like stuff needs to sort of go out there and be told.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing you hit it right on the head. There's this kind of fear of interacting with people who are different from us. And that could be different because they have special needs, different because they come from a different country or just look different or whatever it is. And I don't think that it's because we're scared of that person because they're different. I think that it is internal. Like we're kind of scared of what do I do and what do I need to do or how do I change the way I act to make this interaction more natural or more comfortable. And one thing that I really love is we're inclusive of all diagnoses. So we have families that have children with Down syndrome or autism, more common things that we think of, cerebral palsy. But then we have families that have a child with maybe a rare condition or even possibly undiagnosed. And all of these families coming together, the support needs are so different. Like you said, like being in the school, there's some people who need some more support, some people who need less support. And we work with a lot of volunteers. And one thing I hear from our volunteers is they will come and tell me, I have never had these like individual personalized interactions with people who have special needs. And now that I volunteered with you and I helped at this event or I helped with this program, I'm not scared anymore. Like I'm not worried about how to interact because really there's no difference, right? Like we have the same compassion and the same, kindness that we would with anybody. But until you have those interactions, like you just don't know. And I hear from families who have their kids come out and like a whole family will come out and volunteer. And then they're like, oh, my kid was not scared to talk to the new kid in their class that has X, Y, or Z. Or, the neighbor that moved in down the street, they realize that their child has a disability and they're like, oh, I'm not scared to go over and talk to them. And so it's really neat that we can help bridge those gaps and kind of take down those barriers and those apprehensions for people so that they can just be a community together.
The thing about kids also is that I think you don't think that much as a child, right? I think maybe you might notice obvious differences if a kid with a disability has like physical attributes that show that. But I feel like it's really easy to get past that once you start playing with, like, I remember like my experience was very much like that, just like I was just playing with them. I didn't really think about anything else other than that. I mean, I remember also I was like a very blunt kid. So I was the type of child that would just like blurt out whatever was going through my head, even if it was not very like respectful or maybe like, a little out of touch. So I remember kind of just like literally seeing these kids and like looking at them and as a child asking them like, why do you look like, or what do you have? And then some of them would answer, some of them would not, or like my teachers would answer. And that was that. Like, I remember being like, oh, okay. And then just going back to like playing. And I think that a lot of like those experiences, like you said, when you see volunteers of just like being able to kind of be past that sort of bridge of fear of how to be with someone. Obviously, there's the interaction with people like this is never going to be the same than with a normal person. But at the same time, I feel like it is. You just kind of have to see them as fellow humans, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was teaching swim lessons, I would always volunteer if we got a lesson request for a child that had a special needs diagnosis. I would always volunteer to teach that lesson. And then as I kind of was there for longer, I moved into a director role and I wasn't teaching anymore. And I remember we got a request and I asked one of the swim instructors, hey, we have a request for a private swim lesson and this little girl has Down syndrome. And she was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And I said, you teach the lesson the exact same way you would for any 5-year-old. And you're going to give them extra patience and extra love like you would for any 5-year-old. And you might have to modify or adapt your lesson plan like you would for any 5-year-old. And she jumped in there and she was amazing. She ended up loving that swim lesson and loving that little girl so much that she was like, this is my favorite student to teach. And I remember just the joy of her mom sitting on the side of the pool watching this swim lesson take place. And she was just so grateful to see somebody just loving on her kid and teaching them and, giving them just all of their energy and time and attention and making this not only a really special interaction, but really beneficial too. So absolutely, I totally agree with you that there's really no difference. It's just we perceive a difference, right? Like we're like, oh, I have to change because this is different, but we don't really have to change at all.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's things that you have to adapt to, I guess. But look, I think for like, especially for like short-term interactions. You don't need to do anything other than just accept the person that is there. And I think a lot of times, I think people with disabilities appreciate that, right? Like they understand more than I think a lot of us think. And I think a lot of them also feel and they feel that acceptance. And that's at least that's like in my experience what I feel. And it's just kind of just being able to make space and go from there.
Yeah. We do a lot of all of our programs and services, they span the whole life cycle. So think of it as if you're a brand new parent, or well, maybe not a brand new parent, but you're a parent and you have a brand new baby and you receive either during your pregnancy or at birth, or maybe in early childhood, a diagnosis. And our whole kind of our origin story is our founders had their first baby as very young parents. They did not have any prenatal diagnosis, no indications for anything different. And they had their baby, and it was an emergency C-section. So like all the doctors are in there. The dad was filming everything. And mom was actually a nurse, right? So she's like medically aware, or aware of the medical world and like all of that. So anyway, mom's on the operation table. They do this emergency C-section and dad's filming. And the doctors came over and they're like, "Are you the dad?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, I'm the dad." And they're like, "Well, you might want to turn off your camera." So he turns off his camera, and they told him, they said, "We think your baby might have Down syndrome. And you might not want to tell your wife right now because, she's like going through this whole thing." And he's like, no, we're going to tell my wife right now. She's a nurse. She is going to know. So he told his wife, and he told her, "The doctors think our baby might have Down syndrome." And she was like, "Oh my gosh, wake me up. I'm dreaming, right? Like, wake me up." They had no clue, no indication. And just a big moment to hear that. It's really kind of just like life stopping, right? Like everything stops, the whole world stops. You're processing something that you had no clue of. And a lot of this is kind of like grieving, right? You all of a sudden kind of grieve for the life that you imagined, the child that you imagined as you were pregnant and dreaming of all the things that you would do with your family. And you have to kind of put that aside and then process not only all of the medical information and all of the implications that your, challenges and the joys, everything. Like, it's just a lot to process. And then you have a lot of questions. So he and his wife were learning everything they could about this diagnosis. What is this going to mean for our child? What is this going to mean for us? And a nurse came in to their room while they were still at the hospital, and her name was Kathy. And she was like, "Hey, I'm not assigned to you, but I have a daughter with Down syndrome. And I heard you guys just had a baby with Down syndrome." And she's like, "You guys just hit the lottery. You do not know how amazing your life is going to be, how incredible this journey is going to be." And she sat down and talked to them parent to parent, not as a nurse, not as a doctor, not, all the medical stuff that's going on, but just mom to mom, parent to parent. And they had this really meaningful, life-changing conversation. And Mark and Amber, our co-founders, were like, every parent deserves this. And so we started out with newborn visits, and we got parents connected with another parent that has a child with the same or a similar diagnosis. And they could just talk parent to parent, like, what is your life like? What do you do for this? What do you do for that? Because like you said, there's a lot of joys and a lot of things you don't change anything, but depending on the diagnosis, there will be changes, right? Of course, there'll be changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And depending on what the diagnosis and how severe the needs will be, it could be a few modifications, or it could be a lot of, big changes and challenges in your life. And so it was really great to get parents connected and have them be able to talk to each other. When I go to those newborn visits, it's this instant bond. They bond about the same nurses that they had, maybe the same doctors. I mentioned that we have some families that have a child with a rare diagnosis. So we're not always able to match if it's something very rare, but we can find similarities that, the parents can relate to each other about. And it's so important. And then from that newborn visit or new diagnosis visit, our parents can go into play groups and have their children play and get those social skills and early learning skills. And then the parents get connected with other parents. And again, it's just this instant bond. It's like moving to another country and then finding someone from your hometown. And you're just like, oh, wow. Like right away you click, oh, do you know where that store is over there, or that restaurant or that park? And you have all those things in common. And it's just like that when we get parents connected. It's really special. And so we do all these classes for early childhood, and then we help parents as they transition into the world of education, whether it's public or private school. and help them get connected so they understand their rights, how to advocate for their child, how to work with the teachers and make those accommodations, like you said, but not just like a standard modification. What's going to be best for my child? And then as their children grow up, we have a teen night program and the teens get together. They learn social and life skills. They make genuine friendships that are going to last outside of our programs, last outside of high school. And then we have a young adult program that does the same thing. And it's all about keeping people connected to their community, building that community. And then for the parents, we do a lot of education and resources. We help with applications for all the different waiver programs and different external programs that they would qualify for to get extra help. And our belief with the parents is if we can give parents education and resources and help them build a community so they have that social and emotional support network, then the parents have all the tools they need. They have the support they need to then advocate for their child and help their child live their best life according to, what their desires are. And then we hope that those children will grow up and become self-advocates as adults and be able to share their experiences. And whether that's sharing it with community members, sharing it with the special needs community, or even sharing it with our lawmakers and saying, look, this is my life and this is what I need for my success. Because especially right now, I think, there's a lot of different things that are going on with the law about supports that, programs that are affecting families everywhere, but especially families in the disability community. So it's like you said, there's challenges, there's joys. Most things are all the same. Every parent needs support, right? Every parent needs support. Every individual needs support. We're just getting people connected that have that common bond of a child with a disability or a special needs diagnosis.
Yeah, no, for sure. Actually, one of the questions that I had for you is what your support is towards these children that grow up to become adults, but are not necessarily functioning adults in society, but kind of are, I think, depending on diagnosis, obviously, like it's a spectrum and it varies from illness to illness. And I think you'll have kids who you can kind of like make a little bit more independent than others. But I think I've seen around me a lot of parents who struggle once their kids become adults and they start aging because they're kids that are severely limited and cannot be integrated into society, need constant care, etc. And there's a struggle to find sort of support for that because yes, you need a lot of money, you need a lot of like very special resources, and it's not just like any kind of care. It has to be specialized towards this child. And I mean, I'm from a Latin American background, right? Like I'm Latina. With my family, I think with my culture, it's very normal to kind of rely on family. That kind of like family thing is very important. And so you see a lot of these families who are from like these cultural backgrounds kind of just like being like, well, when I die, your brother has to take over. And then the brother feels like, oh no, now I have like this huge responsibility of this adult. And I'm wondering what you guys do, with like these situations that I think are rarely talked about or kind of like seen unless you are in them yourself.
Yeah, it's not something that we talk about regularly or think about even. I think it's something scary to think about when you're talking about life planning. And if you have children and thinking about what happens when I die, what happens when when I'm no longer here to take care of my child. One, we want to take care of our children and we want to be here forever and ever. I will live forever and take care of my child forever. Right? That's just not realistic. It's not going to happen that way. When you have a child that has special needs, they need a lot more than just, oh, I need to set up this, trust and make sure my kids don't fight over who's going to get the house or who's going to get, grandma's fine china or whatever. We help parents with life planning, and we have a transition to adulthood program that when their child is, even before they turn 18, we want to start having these conversations, and they meet with our transition specialist and they learn about different government programs like Social Security insurance and Medicaid. We're very strong proponents for vocational rehabilitation. So if people want to work and they can work, we want to help promote that and help our adults with special needs have meaningful employment, not just a job that they go to because it's an easy job to do or low maintenance for the employer, but a job that they truly enjoy. Like everyone should have a job that they enjoy, right? There's the whole saying that if you love what you do, you never work in your life. And a lot of us are very lucky to do things that we love, and we want that for our adults with special needs. So if we can help them get into employment and be able to work and keep their benefits, right, their government benefits, because they need to have that security to make sure that they can pay for their food, pay for their housing, their medical needs, their recreational needs. They're just, extras in life. Like, life is more than just a place to live and food to eat, right? We want to have activities that we enjoy and social activities and friends to go see and everything like that. So we help parents with that. We work with a lot of financial planners and special needs attorneys to help parents understand their options, how they can start investing money to do a special needs trust, how to set up that special needs trust. And then they can work with some of the different professionals that we kind of share and present through webinars and things like that. So then parents can get a little bit of information, have that meaningful conversation with their family. Like you said, guardianship, who is going to be the guardian of my child? If we have guardianship, is it going to go to a sibling? Is it going to go to an aunt or an uncle? Or who's going to, help with that? And then we let the parents kind of select on their own from all these different professionals that we can help introduce them to. But a big goal is to make sure that parents feel empowered and that they don't feel trapped. Like, they don't feel like this is my only option, and because I didn't have the information, this is just what I have to go with. We want to give them as much information, a diverse number of resources and professionals that they can work with, and a key focus on staying integrated in one's community. Like you said, there's a lot of money that you need. If we had all the money in the world, and we're here, we're based in the state of Utah, and in Utah, we have a waiting list for something called the Department of Services for People with Disabilities. And it's a waiver program that's funded through Medicaid, but it helps parents provide respite care. It helps parents get their children into day programs. It helps with so many things, home health. And there's a huge wait list. There's thousands of people on the wait list. If everybody that qualified applied for this, we would have tens of thousands of people on the wait list. And it goes by your needs, right? So it's not just you sign up and you're at the bottom list. It goes by how great your needs are. And so that's wonderful. But for everyone that's on the wait list, what do I do? And there's this whole thing with anybody, right? But especially with adult children who have higher supports, might need to get a ride to go where they're going, might need a support person to help them. When you leave that public education, when you graduate, now what, right? And I'm sure there's so many parents who have like children who take a gap year and they're like, hurry, go off to college, go get a job, go do something. When your child has special needs, their options are going to be different. And your ability to provide enriching activities daily can definitely be impacted by the family's budget. And so that's why we created our young adult program. We wanted to create a program that was very low cost. We do have a very small program fee, a participation fee for it, $5 or $10. It's nothing compared to, going into a full program, but it's also not a full day. You're going to go there for 8 hours a day, every day. Ours is twice a month in person, twice a month virtually. And we are working to grow that because we know the need is so big. We don't want our adults with special needs to be at home in their room, watching an iPad, watching TV, doom scrolling, whatever it is, and losing their skills that they worked so hard to build, all of those skills that they've learned in school, losing their social connection and feeling isolated. And then, once you're at home and isolated, there's so many implications from that: mental health, depression, anxiety, and then, getting reintegrated into your community. For the parents that don't have the budget to pay for a million activities, and maybe they don't have the time to drive them to all of these activities and make it happen, then the parents feel guilt because they want the best for their child. So now the parents feeling guilty, they're watching their child maybe get depressed and lose out on some of their skill regression. And now the parent is feeling depressed, the parent's feeling isolated. So there's this whole mental health issue that I think is not often considered when we're looking at life after high school, right? For especially the disability community. So we work really hard to help parents understand all of their options. We try to provide a social and life skills program that can supplement others. And then, of course, we work with so many other nonprofits. We're really small. We love to partner with other organizations that have the same mission and are serving the same community, Because if we can't do it all, at least we can know some really great organizations to tell you about that are local. And then your child might be in, programs with several organizations, and just staying active and staying integrated with their community. And if they're working, that's amazing, because then they have a really great job to go to every day. And if we can help them learn how to work and keep their benefits, so that way they have a security blanket for, the duration of their life. People with special needs live a long time. I think there's some, if you talked about this like 50 years ago, people were not as concerned, because the lifespan of an individual with a special needs diagnosis maybe was not going to outlive their parents. But now people are living long lives. We have so much more breakthroughs in medicine and therapies. People can live long, meaningful lives, but then that's more work for the parents, right? To think about, okay, we have to prepare for when we're not here. And I think that's the scariest thing, is just facing your own mortality and being like, okay, I'm not going to be here, but I need to make this plan. And honestly, I have 2 small children. We haven't done all of that yet, because it's scary and it's a lot to think about. So we do try to start those conversations early and make it less scary, take that stigma out, and just help them, plan for their family's future. And I love how you mentioned the whole like family as a unit, because a lot of our activities, we invite the siblings to come and participate in as well, because we want to support the whole family. We want the sibling to feel connected as well. And oftentimes the activities we invite siblings to are just really fun classes, fun events. And then we're like, great, this sibling gets to go and meet other families that might be similar to theirs. They'll feel less alone and less isolated, thinking, oh, I'm the only one in the world that has a brother or sister that, whatever is different. And then they get to do fun things. And they, instead of saying, oh, I go to so many doctor's appointments because of my little brother or my big brother or whatever, but I get to go to all of these fun things. Like yesterday, we had an art class at BYU's Museum of Art, and we had so many siblings that came. It's summertime, everyone's out from school. And I heard some of the parents, they say, look, aren't you so lucky that Billy is your brother, that you get to come and do this? And then they're playing with the other kids. And like you said, the kids, they don't see all these differences. Maybe something that's physical, but most things, kids just want to play.
Yes.
And when you see them playing and having fun, it's just so joyous and so great to see that we can support the whole family, and not just, one person in the family, but the whole family.
No, it totally makes sense. I think the reason that I see it is just I see it a lot with people around me. Obviously, my family doesn't have special needs kids. I don't think I could call myself that. But I kind of have seen the conflict that other families have had of like friends or just like people that we know. And I constantly notice that like it's not just the, okay, how to care for this person on a day-to-day basis, but also like the integration into the family. Whenever you have a child that has more needs than others, so like not just special needs, but if you look at a child, maybe like a family of 2 kids, and then one of them has like a very aggressive form of cancer, right? That kid is going to need more attention and more resources because he has bigger needs than the kid who doesn't have this. And so you look at it from like, I look at it at least from like that idea of like, it's the same thing when you look at a kid with a disability, right? And it can affect psychologically to that other child he can feel overlooked. That child can feel, annoyed. And I think a lot of times like these negative things are kind of not talked about or seen, but they're real and they affect like the entire sort of life that these families have and how it kind of goes. And I think like what you guys do, it was really great is that you were able to connect them with people who they can resonate with, right? Like that they can understand. Because I think it's the same thing, like you said, you mentioned about like meeting someone from abroad and it's from your hometown. And, like that instant connection can happen. And it's really difficult when you're surrounded by people who don't know what it's like to live in that reality, right? And how probably not every day is going to be great. And not every day are you going to be happy about this. And you're going to have negative feelings, negative thoughts. You're going to have like things that affect the family in negative ways and not like, are necessarily always just going to be the best. And having someone that can sort of like have space for listening and understanding and working towards that is amazing, because then we can work towards, hopefully a time when we can integrate them a little bit better into society. And so like a lot of these concerns can be lessened, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's one mom that I talked to, and she said, my friends and family, they really love me. They want to support me. They don't know how.
But they want
They don't know how. They don't live this life. Sometimes you do need to vent, right? And like you had a hard day and you need to talk to someone, and you don't want to feel like you're complaining about being a parent or complaining about your child. It's just that we all have, hard days, and being able to talk to someone that totally understands is so meaningful. One parent told me, she said, it's the understanding that another parent instantly gets, where it's like, you love your child so much, but you can really hate the situation that you're in. So you can, and that was like, wow, that's really, really spot on for some of those hard days, right? You love your child, but you can hate the situation that you have to work through. Like you said, with the other siblings, like that resentment, if they feel like, oh, my, brother or sister gets more time and more attention, the parents feeling guilty for that too. I think they call that the glass child, right? When one child is kind of overlooked, or even like you said, you might have two kids. One kid might just be really good at school, and so you never have to help them with homework. The other child having struggling with math, and so you spend a lot more one-on-one time helping them with that math every night. And then the child's like, the other kid, like, well, hey, I want an hour every night with just mom or just dad, because it's hard to understand that when you're little.
Because you don't think like, oh, like they just don't need to help me that much. Or you don't think like, yeah, like I get it. My brother struggles more than I do. It's more just like, how come he gets that much time and that much attention and I get none of it, right?
Yeah.
Or I think I compare it to also like, I'm from a family of fives. We're 5 siblings. It's a lot. We constantly had to make a lot of sacrifices for the other. And I think like that happens a lot with families where you have children with bigger needs than others, right? Because it's like, we can't go on this vacation because your brother might need this really expensive program, and we have to put that as a priority. And, like children don't see it as like, okay, like this is more important than the vacation. They just think, how come he always gets these things and I never get like the fun vacations and things like that. So that's why like you being able, like you guys doing stuff that makes these other children sort of associate their siblings' disabilities with fun and happiness, and not just sacrifice and having to give up and like, sort of just like put yourself in a corner, is I think really important, because it's also like a part of what that life is like.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it happens in neurotypical families too, right? Like if one sibling is like really good at ballet, right? And so they're going to like all these ballet performances, or state championship, world champion, whatever it is. I don't know what the championships are, but they're good at a sport, good at a talent, right? And so they're doing a lot of traveling. They might have a lot of competitions or whatever it is. But one thing I think we sometimes overlook for the siblings is a sibling that grows up with a brother or sister that has a special needs diagnosis. I think they grow up and continue to have very great amounts of empathy for other people. Understanding when people have challenges and need extra help, understanding when somebody's different, maybe not being scared for that interaction, right? My niece, so my nephew that has special needs, he has a younger sister who is, I think 6 years younger than him. And I remember, she was growing up with him, obviously, her whole life. And when there was a little girl that came into her class, I don't even think she had special needs. I think she was just new and kind of left out. I remember my niece telling me, like, I invited her to sit with me at lunch. I didn't want her to feel left out. I didn't want her to feel like my brother might feel if people are playing with him. So just having that, I think they have more of an awareness of when people do need some extra time or attention, and just that empathy there. It's amazing. Being able to have that gift of growing up with someone that teaches you these beautiful, qualities of being a human.
It's true.
But it is also hard, right? It's hard, especially when you're a younger kid and you're like, I want mom right now. What are you doing over there? Or like you said, why can't we go on with that vacation? Why can't we fly? Because maybe you have medical equipment that, you can't travel with, or they might be medically fragile and can't travel. So there can be a lot of sacrifices, and then a lot of overlooked benefits, maybe, right? and joys. But like everything with all of life, there's joys, there's challenges. And when you can get connected with people who understand that and can relate to you and maybe give some really good advice based on their own journey, then it's beautiful to bring people together.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. And I think that's why we need to sort of continue to support groups like yours that do that and help out with the whole process. Because I think it's really important to always just sort of like be able to work with families who will honestly have this person with a disability for the rest of their lives, right? So it's not just like, oh, when it's a baby, when it's a child, when it's a teen, it's their entire life cycle. And having, I think, support, it really changes how you will go through that experience. And I think it can minimize the hardships if you know that you have someone or a certain group of, or whatever that can give you the guidance that you might need, the support that you might need, the escape, whatever it is that you need at that moment. And why I think we should continue to always just support things like this.
Yeah, for sure. And, one thing I was thinking about as you were talking, we get our parents connected with the special needs community, and we do a lot of activities that are just for the special needs community. But we do a lot of activities and like our enrichment classes, like the art class we had yesterday. There's so many art classes that are available. You could do an art class at your community center, your recreation center, after school program, or at the library. And I hear from some of our parents that they are actually really intimidated to go and sign up for some of these classes or attend these classes that are meant for just kind of the, greater community, because they're worried my child needs all of these modifications, or my child is not going to listen and people are going to think they're just being naughty, or they might run away and people, or they'll be too loud, or we're very self-conscious, right? And when they come out, like for a number of our families that came out to our art class yesterday at the museum, maybe now they have the confidence to just go to the museum, right? And just go and not feel like, oh, I have to be really quiet and like follow all these rules. And it's going to be too hard for my child. Well, they saw their child do it yesterday. They saw their child be so successful. And yes, there were some supports there and some modifications, but really their child did a great job. And so I love when we can build parents' confidence and individuals' confidence to go and do things, because maybe it does make more sense to take that adaptive class, right? Or the modified class, whatever it is. But also for a lot of our families, maybe it makes sense to just go to the one at the library that's for everybody and take it at your own pace and, give yourself that grace and that patience if you do need to step aside or come back or whatever. But again, it's just like, it's that whole thing about community integration. You can do this. We're here to support you. We're here to build your confidence and just give you, all those supports that you need to live a beautiful life.
No, and I think that's amazing. I think that's also a great way to end the podcast on. But before we end it, Sylvia, I do want to give you the space to tell our viewers or our listeners if there's anything today that resonated with them or that they would like to learn more about, if they have disability, family members of their own, or, whatever it is. The floor is yours.
Oh, awesome. If you would love to learn more about United Angels Foundation, our website is unitedangels.org. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. You can see so many beautiful videos and pictures of all of our activities and programs. We do not get any government funding. We are completely funded through private fundraising. We have a very large advocacy event and fundraiser every year, some smaller fundraisers, and we do a lot of grant writing. So if this is a cause that is close to your heart and you would like to contribute so we can make our programs available at no cost or a very low cost to we serve over 2,400 families in the state of Utah. Please consider making a donation. You can go to unitedangels.org and you can donate, or you can send that information to a family that you know would benefit from our services. And you can just hit that join button. You'll go to our email list and one of our staff members will reach out, set up a phone call with you, find out what all of your individual story is and how we can support you.
Awesome. I will be adding those links to the description of this video. And thank you so much, Sylvia, for being here. I really love talking to you. I love foundations like yours, and I hope that you can continue to grow and strive. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening. Subscribe, listen, do the whole shebang, comment, like, and I will see you on the next episode.
You've been listening to Unified Purpose, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest. And to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.